So, very pleasant morning to all. Well, to begin with, I'm reminding of a beautiful quote, a quote by William Arthur. He says, teaching is more than imparting knowledge, it is inspiring change. Learning is more than absorbing fact, it is acquiring understanding. With these words, I, Dr. Shubhra Jimbal, wish you all a healthy and a blissful moment. I feel it a great privilege to welcome you all to this 3 day long international virtual conference organized by Government College of Education Jammu, State Islamic Institute Madura, Indonesia, Universitas El Garis Mandar, Indonesia, Universitas Muhammadiyah Semarang Repang, Indonesia, in collaboration with Cape Comorin Trust, Lavender Literary Club, and Cape Comorin Publishers. My heartiest welcome to our worthy Secretary, Higher Education Department, Government of UT of Jammu and Kashmir, Madam Sushma Chauhan. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us and sparing out your valuable time from your busy schedule. I extend my welcome to our Principal, Madam Dr. Kulwinder Kaur. Thanks, ma'am, for joining us, and it's because of your vision such a big event is being organized today. I also welcome to all the principals of various degree colleges who have joined us across globe as well as J&K of UT. I feel immense pleasure to welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. J.N. Balia from Central University of Jammu. I heartily welcome our plenary speakers, Dr. Vikram Dwivedi from SMVDU Katra, Dr. Naima Munir from Lahore, Pakistan, Dr. Rashid Minas Batu from Sialkot, Pakistan, Dr. Azama Nemati from Iran. I extend my welcome to all the chairpersons, the convener of the event, Dr. Sushma Bala, members of the advisory board, organizing committee, and most importantly, I welcome all dear participants. My sincere welcome to each one of you for joining us today, and especially during this time of pandemic. I would like to extend my thank you to all of you to spare your valuable presence in this 3 day long conference titled Teaching, Learning and Education. Well said by Nelson Mandela. Education is one of the most powerful weapons. It can change people, communities, and entire nations, and the future of humanity. So keep learning and educating. Now, I request our principal, ma'am, Dr. Kulwinder Kaur, to please deliver her inaugural speech. Ma'am, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, respected worthy chief guest of the occasion, Secretary to Government Higher Education Department, UT of J&K, Madam Sarita Chauhan ji, principals of various degree colleges, honored guests, keynote speaker, Dr. J.S. Balia, plenary speakers, eminent scholars, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure indeed for me to welcome you all to this 3 day international virtual conference on teaching, learning and education, organized by Government College of Education Jammu in collaboration with State Islamic Institute Madura, Indonesia, UAAM and UMSR Indonesia, Cape Comorin Trust and Lavender Literary Club in association with Cape Comorin Publisher India. Madam, COVID-19 has triggered an unprecedented use of technology in the teaching and learning process. While the teachers learned the technical and grappled with the logistic needs for delivering virtual learning, these online classrooms also opened a world of opportunities to reimagine what learning could look like in the years to come. We are living through what we had anticipated was a distant future. The advancements in technology have allowed us to greet each other today despite our inability to meet physically to discuss such important issues. I am very happy and grateful that so many distinguished scholars and teachers have joined us from both home and abroad to share their knowledge and experiences for exploring better ways for teaching and learning to gain apt knowledge for helping our future leaders. Well, all of us being somehow related to the field of education know that education is globally acknowledged as the most powerful means of empowering human beings. The aim of this conference is to bring out the recent innovative trends, concerns, as well as practical challenges encountered with solutions adopted in the fields of teaching, learning, and education. This conference is going to explore the areas of early childhood education, new education policy, machine learning, theory and practice of physical developments in teaching and learning. Such conferences further will help in navigating through complex teaching and learning research literature, provide access to discipline-specific peer-reviewed teaching and learning research journals, share knowledge about assessment tools that will help to evaluate the effectiveness of a teaching method or a strategy. Moreover, such events bring together faculty, staff, and students in sharing best practices in teaching and learning with hundreds of their peers. The main subtopics discussed will be the national education policy, technology integration, creative teaching methods, multilingualism, vocational training, employability issues, alternative ways of teaching, psychology, e-learning initiatives, policy impacts on education, and so many more. I feel highly obliged that though this conference was planned at the 11th hour, still we have received above 150 papers, such a commendable response. After careful scrutiny, our team has decided that around 80 papers will be discussed here in this conference. Madam, it is an accepted fact that teachers are usually not born but made. Good teachers nurture their knowledge and skills through constant and deliberate efforts. One of the prerequisites to be a good teacher is to understand the teaching learning process in more depth. This facilitates better appreciation of the teaching profession as well as the process of imparting education. This conference is intended to give an insight into the concept of teaching and learning for anyone who intends to excel in the field of education. I hope you will have these 3 most productive days of interesting and stimulating discussions. I sincerely wish that this conference will be a great success, not only as a chance to share knowledge and experiences in higher education, but also as the beginning of a long and fruitful cooperation and friendship among fellow educators. This will be devoted to the most meaningful and worthwhile task of teaching and training our youth who are responsible for shaping our future. Madam, I once again thank you for sparing your valuable time from your busy schedule for attending this event. Madam, your presence and words will definitely encourage the speakers and participants. Thanks, Madam. With the permission of our worthy Secretary, Madam, I declare this 3 days virtual conference open. Thanks, Madam. Thanks all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thanks for your best wishes. I truly believe that teaching and creative learning in a spotlight. Such conferences focuses on all the aspects of teaching and learning, from initial curriculum design through improving assessments and feedback, creative initiatives to retain students and work that result in an attained improvement and attainment of that curriculum. Well, moving ahead, we have our keynote speaker, Dr. J.N. Balia, with us. We welcome you, sir. Sir is the head of the Department of Educational Studies, Central University of Jammu. Dr. Balia has a vast experience of teaching and administration as a teacher for last 31 years. That That's fantabulous, sir. Sir is also a program coordinator for Pandit Madan Mohan Lal Malviya National Mission on Teachers and Teaching, that is MHRD scheme, and UGC SWAYAM coordinator for Central University of Jammu. He is having doctorate in education along with post-graduation in education, mathematics and sociology, and many other academic credentials to his credits. He is involved in the research work in the field of educational technology, curriculum development, etc. Dr. Balia has attended several national and international conferences and seminars and has, presented papers across. And he has also authored 6 books. Dr. Balia is also associated with various national and international organizations and bodies as a life members and executive in the executive board too. And he has, he's in the editorial board of more than 5 national and international journals. So we are truly honored to have you with us, sir. And now, without a delay, I hand over the session to you, sir. Welcome to you, sir, once again.
Thank you, Dr. Shubhra. I hope I am audible properly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, esteemed Madam Sushma Chauhan, Secretary to Government of J&K, looking after higher education. Madam, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
And Madam Kulvinder Kaur, Principal of Government College of Education, Dr. Shubhra, Dr. Sushma Bala, and all delighted participants. Madam Shubhra, I am just, I believe, and witness to the situation which you have organized, and also that I think for last 1.5 year almost, we are facing this pandemic, and during this period, having a positive kind of climate for getting people gathered for one very important issue is a great contribution on your part, on your institution. So let me congratulate the whole team behind this wonderful conference. Friends, as we know that this year, rather 2020, if I think about, witnessed very, very historical event in the history of education of our country. That is that we got a new policy on 29th of July 2020. And I really feel honored to be the witness of that moment. And all of us, we got this opportunity to reshape, remodel, reconfigure our system of education, where the involvement of everyone, all stakeholders, because this time, this policy really instigate that we need to get involved, everyone, even the students, even the teachers, the administrators. So I thought, let me concentrate the theme on the policy itself. And I think the whole J&K Union Territory, under the leadership of LG sir, and then also the officers like Madam Sushma Chauhan and many of the people, J&K is taking a good lead. What the kind of input I got, because I'm also associated with some kind of national groups of policy. J&K is really taking good initiatives to ensure that the policy gets properly implemented, because it's not only the policies are designed, more important is that how do we implement, how do we transact those inputs of the policy. As we have all witnessed that 1986, when we got new policy in education around 35 years back, as far as the implementation is concerned, we were not able to convert those policy inputs into real actions for most of the points. But now I think we all have got this challenge, and the organization of these kinds of events would really be a great, I would say, force, a great fuel to see that those policies get implemented. So I'm taking up very important issue in the policy because when I saw that the theme of the whole web conference, that is teaching, learning, and education. So I thought I must take up. So I'll be doing a brief presentation, and with this, I think most of the people, because this is an international conference, and I think the participants we have from abroad also, like speakers we have abroad. I think we should all understand. We should all understand that India as a country is is taking good lead in terms of education through this policy. So that's what we need to share with everyone here, that we all have the kind of policy which is actually looking for. Madam Sushma, please check, is this visible?
Yes,
Yes, thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely. I can see the presentation.
Yeah, yeah. So, in the whole policy, I think we, most of the people who are associated with the policy, the students, the teachers, the faculty from various institutions, they do all understand that this policy is basically driven from one of the very important uh, uh, aspect, and that is the kind of inclusive quality learning. So I thought, because that's what we have to work upon, that is how to ensure holistic, integrated, inclusive learning in 21st century. Because actually, although we have passed, we have actually enjoyed the 20 years of 21st century, but again, the remaining period and the whole period of future learning is left with us. So we can see that how could we reshape, how could we build up the holistic, integrated, inclusive learning in 21st century. But that would depend, friends, that how do we build up a meaningful implementation mechanism. That's very big challenge, very big challenge for every person associated. That's what I started with. It's not only that we should look at the kind of administrators, the bureaucratic setup, the people sitting at helm of affairs, so-called the government, but I think the teachers have the bigger role to play, the parents have bigger role to play, and even the students have their own role to play, so that we could build up a very uh, appropriate implementation mechanism. I have used these two words, implementation mechanism, and let me again share with you, friends, that J&K, Union Territory, and even Ladakh also. They are trying hard. They're trying hard to build up implementation mechanism. See that all different policy inputs actually get converted to productive actions, productive kind of plans, and productive results. So that's very important. So I'm sharing with you, first of all, I think most of the people understand that this time very important, because when we look at new education policy, uh, the basic purpose of this new education policy, the basic vision, I would say, of this new education policy, based on, or it's actually looks into kind of involvement of every citizen, and we have to ensure that the all different abilities of different type of people get uh, get utilized for the development of society. That's what the basic vision. And we also understand, as I was sharing with you, uh, when this policy was being framed, when we started, fortunately, I was the member of one of the focus group of this policy in 2015 when we started this policy. And through J&K government, I was invited in one of some of the discussions. And recently, I have been included by Government of India in one of some of the groups in the policy implementation. So, basic this policy has been driven from that is Sustainable Development Goal 4 of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, where Indian government signed this document. And one thing which we have to ensure, one thing we have to look into this policy, which actually driven from that SDG goal number 4, that is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education. And let me share with you, friends, that this is not a simple statement. This is a very challenging kind of task for everyone to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. And this goal, it is said in that document itself, which we signed in 2015, that we have to achieve this goal by 2030. And therefore, if you look at the whole policy structure, you'll find that most of the goal period we have been given 2030. Though this is a gradual implementation plan are being formulated, but we have to make sure that by 2030, most of the policy components get translated into real actions, and we go ahead with the policy kind of thing. As far as the policy is concerned, I think the very interesting part of this policy is that there are 27 chapters or sections in the policy, where 8 are connected with the school education, 11 with higher education, which is being looked after by Madam Sushma Chauhan, 11 sections for higher education, and 5 additional focus area, including teacher education, the kind of adult education, professional education, all different areas have different references for 5 chapters. And the last 3 chapters, that's the basic beauty of this policy. The last 3 chapters are devoted for making it happen. Because most of the policies, what we have, that we have, okay, this thing you have to do, this thing we have to do. We all talk about the design, but in this policy, some kind of actionable points, actionable paths are mentioned in last 3 chapters, through which we have to open the gate of the implementation, and then we have to make our implementation plan for that purpose. So in this way, the total 27 chapters, if you look at the whole policy, like it's just 62, 63 pages document, but every line of this policy, friends, it's so meaningful, so comprehensive in its meaning. Only thing is that with our consistent involvement, consistent engagement, all people work together with coordinated way, have to work to see that we actually achieve the goals. And goals which I said that are providing holistic, inclusive, and integrated kind of education to every individual sitting in any corner of the country. Now, I think I shared with you that this thing. I think I will not devote too much of time for this issue, but I think most of the people, when I say that integrated, when I say that holistic, when we say inclusive, we have to understand that through this policy, what we understand generally, okay, from 10 plus 2 plus 3, we have converted into 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. This is not only the structural change, but that's what we all have to realize. It's not only kind of ladder we have changed from 10 plus 2 plus 3 to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 plus another 4 or 3 years of graduation program. But in this structure, you will find that when we talk about first 5 years of foundational, or the next 3 years preparatory, then next 3 years middle, then next 4 years secondary, there is a very, very clear direction for integrated education. That's what I'll come up in my next slides in brief, that we have to make the link between or among all these different components. It's not that elementary education, or as we had like elementary education, then secondary education, then higher secondary education, making different ladders, isolated ladders will not come into or will not convert into meaningful education. When we say holistic, when we say integrated, we have to ensure that how do we integrate foundational to preparatory and middle and secondary, and that is the challenge. Then in terms of facilities, in terms of pedagogies to be used, in terms of teachers, recruitment, in terms of kind of overall policy inputs, we have to ensure that how do we go for integrated climate of the policy. And that's what here we need to discuss. I hope that these 3 days, which the organizers have framed, Madam was sharing that they have got good number of papers, and then around 80 papers they have listed for the participation. I hope, I'm sure that these papers would certainly talk about integration of the things so that we can think for the basic theme of this conference, that is teaching and learning and education. So, friends, when we say holistic development, we have to simply think, see, we are not to see what is there in the policy. We have to see how could we implement now. We are not to talk about the policy. I think most of the people understand what is there in the policy. We have to really work. We have to really think. We have to really initiate our efforts for building up the path of holistic development. And for that purpose, the very first thing is that how do we develop the curriculum for the country? As you know, today, like for different organizations are working hard to frame different curricula for different classes, for different groups. And while framing curricula, we have to be very conscious. We have to be very clear that curricula should not be isolated compartments kind of thing. We shouldn't have like curricula for foundational stage and for preparatory stage without any linkages. That's what we have to ensure, that all the things like when we say the skills required, and specifically for 21st century skills required, those things are to be translated in all different levels, and we have to go for the gradation of those things. So that's what actually the national curriculum framework have been initiated at national level, at state level. People involved in those things are developing the mechanism, that what type of different skill sets, because in this policy, emphasis is on development of skills, not only acquisition of knowledge. The important thing is that this policy has very deep emphasis, insightful emphasis on developing skills, and that's why first we have to see that what are the different skill sets required, and hopefully NCERT, because friends at NCERT headquarters are sharing with me, though during this period you see that policy we got implemented and that period is so painful period, but even then people sitting at helm of affairs, people sitting at different organizations are working hard these days to develop those skill set and everything. So that's a very important thing. And another point, because when we say holistic education, when we say integrated learning, we have to ensure that we have to reduce. This is very important issue. I think issue that how to reduce curriculum content to enhance essential learning, because I think we should not have too much of emphasis of giving content load on the shoulders of the students, because curriculum is not only something kind of only the syllabus, heavy syllabus, but rather we have to have the space for critical thinking, because then only we can have the inclusive kind of things. Inclusive is not only that giving education to everybody, but also ensuring that everybody gets included in the process of learning. And for that purpose, in this policy, very clearly it is mentioned that we have to have inquiry-based, discovery-based, and analysis-based, discussion-based learning situations. And classroom sessions should have regularly fun-related activities, creative activities, collaborative and exploratory activities for the students. And I think if you have read this policy, too much of emphasis is given on experiential learning, learning which we gain through experience. There has to be a very clear, though we had been talking about these things in earlier documents, earlier policies. It's not something new we are talking about experiential learning. But the point is the pedagogy needs to be developed. If the classrooms are of the same style and same culture, and curricula is experiential learning based, nothing will come out. We have to. I think that's what Dr. Shubhra was sharing. I'm looking after Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya National Mission for Teachers and Teaching. Even during this lockdown period, we had been able to organize various capacity building programs for different teachers. And what we tried to do in this direction, that we should first of all develop the capacities of the teachers. That's very important, because when we say holistic or integrated or joyful, all these kinds of things, the first thing is that we have to prepare the teachers. That's basic perception of this policy. Teacher needs to be, first of all, trained. Teachers need to be oriented. Teachers need to be prepared for taking up these things so that they organize. We need to train the teachers, not only just providing organizing training for them, but changing their mindset in that context, that how to go for creative, collaborative, exploratory activities. We do have the teachers who are doing all these things, but this has to be developed as a culture, because if you develop as a culture of in the classroom, that how to convert the content into a creative activities, collaborative atmosphere, unrelated atmosphere, then only you can ensure. Otherwise, classrooms. So in this policy, that's what 2-3 points I will emphasize upon. There is a very clear reference of art integrated approach. Arts integrated. See, generally in school setting or then the college settings, mainly in the school setting, we see that we do have the subjects of arts like fine arts, activity periods, and all that. But what has been said in the policy, there has to be an integration of arts. That means even the maths to be taught, history to be taught, sciences to be taught by integrating those arts. Arts should not be taken up as a separate kind of activity. And even very interesting thing, friends, that sports integrated education. That means we need to integrate the sports, the outside off classroom activities. We call it off classroom activities, outside the classroom activities, through the content. We should not have, okay, generally we see in the schools that, okay, the classrooms are going on and then we have the sports period, games period outside. So one physical education person will come and, no, we have to integrate. We have to see that how do we teach even maths through sports activity? How do we teach history? So everything has to be connected with, because sports students are always happy to join that. So this is basically, and that will give the atmosphere, that will give the climate for experiential learning. And the another thing, the storytelling based pedagogy. Because you generally see the students as learners at every stage, even at our stage also, our phase also. Every person is, that every person loves listening stories. Every person loves narrating stories. So storytelling based pedagogy. And that's what, if you look at the history books, look at a geography book, look at the science books, when the mathematics should be taught. I'm myself mathematics teacher, educator. I always tell my teachers to whom I train that when you teach mathematics, don't always give the formulae and the solutions. Give them the story behind that. If you're talking about Pythagoras, you're talking about trigonometry, talking about any algebraic expression, always give a kind of story behind it. Develop the story. Every question should be given in the form of story, and you will see that how do students enjoy it. The students' engagement in the process of learning, because it's the theme of the conference, teaching learning. When you create that climate of learning, and you want that students should get involved, it's not only on paper. You have to say the officially document. We generally say that the students should be involved. You have to ensure it by having the pedagogy. So storytelling is not only in English or Hindi or languages, but in all different subjects. So even just last month, I organized one national workshop on mathematics pedagogy, where I had the experts from NCRT and some other, and we had 100 teachers to whom we trained. We told them that mathematics may be taught through storytelling method. Even question when you do, then it's that's what actually the point. And another point in this policy is about empowering students through flexibility in course choices. That's again a big challenge. So what the traditional system we have, friends, that we have curricular, we have extracurricular, we have co-curricular activities, as I was sharing with you, and another classifications we have humanities, science, then within science we have medical, non-medical. How could we break up this thing? And this would be a challenge because our mindset, our whole conduct of the whole atmosphere, whole classroom setup is that we, after 10th class, we go for humanities, we go for sciences, we go for uh, commerce, and sometimes we go for the vocational courses. How can we integrate these things? This is a challenge, and for that purpose, it is said that from 6th onwards, vocationalization will start, and for accordingly, we have to develop vocationalization, and also that students should be given that option to go for the different kind of combination of the subjects, and that would be leading so that students really feel joy, and you give them the holistic setup, you give them the integrated setup. Let us not just create diversification and make them rather kind of know that not providing them the opportunity to select their own subjects. And that's what. And another point, last thing I would share with you, friends, in this policy is talked about, because I shared with you this policy is a big document. And if you look at chapter number 4 of this policy, that is on curriculum and pedagogy, having around 11 pages. That's the biggest section of this policy, biggest chapter of this policy. The remaining chapters are in 2 or 4 pages. 27 chapters are there. But the 4th chapter on curriculum and pedagogy is the biggest one, because this time policy says that only the pedagogical path and the curriculum, unless we develop a proper curriculum, unless we develop the clear path of pedagogy, we can't convert the policy into action. So that's what I think we need to look into. All friends, I would request who are from the field of different disciplines, we need to look at the policy and see that how could we develop the pedagogy, which actually speaks about kind of holistic and integrated education. And multilingual lingualism, or the power of language, has been talked about. And in that context, because India as a country, personally, I think you all will maybe agree with me that I am not in favor of comparing India with Finland, comparing India with USA and all that. Yes, we have to draw the inputs. But see, the Finland population is just 55 lakhs. It is even less than the population of Jammu division, I believe. So but we should not always talk about Finland. They have only one religion or two religion, or like mainly Christianity is their religion. They have only one language. We have so many languages. We have so many regional differences, religional differences, and religion-wise, we have multi-religious country. We have multi-linguist country. So having policy, having implementation plan is something different from other countries. Not in terms of only population, but also in terms of its variation. We have a geographical, see how much Finland is having just uniform geographical culture, background. We have plus 50 at Jaisalmer, we have minus 50 Siachen, so we have so much of geographical disparity, and having curriculum structure, having kind of facilities would be a big challenge for people like Madam Chauhan. And in our own union territory, you see that we have so much of variations. Doda, Jammu, Kishtwar, Srinagar, having any kind of policy inputs would not be so easy, and their involvement is of every teacher is very important. So that's what actually in this policy it has been said that multilingualism, because if we have to prepare the content for the students, how do you ensure the inclusive education? How do we consider, because if you something you make a video in English, how could that video be, that enjoyed by a student sitting at Doda who is not familiar with English language? You have to provide that video or audio or the content in his own language. So this time it is said that we have to go for multilingual content development, multilingual curriculum development, and that would be a big challenge, and that would require involvement of teachers, involvement of people who are having experience. Let me share with you, since I'm looking after UGC SWAM project of our university, and I'm UGC SWAM coordinator, and also looking after NPTEL online education. When we develop the content, we have to develop the content for different languages. uh, I was in a group of people where I was to record some videos. So we record video in Assamese, Bengali, Malayalam. It's not only that you develop video in English language or Hindi language. So that's character we have to go for, and then only you can ensure inclusiveness in the curriculum. So all these things, new concepts, this policy has talked about, because I understand this. I have less time to speak upon, but let me share with you in the last thing that this policy has also spoken about something new, like we should have the emphasis. New subjects are to be introduced, not new, but I would say with the heavy weightage to artificial intelligence, design thinking, holistic health, organic living, environmental education, and the curricular practices, curricular paths for these things need to be developed for these different aspects. Even for different kind of skills and capacities need to be developed for the students. And main emphasis, this policy has given the knowledge of India. We should know our country. We should know the basic things of country. Generally, we do criticize our country. When you criticize our country, look at the culture, look at the thing that I just said that personally, I don't believe in comparing. I believe comparing India with Bharat. Compare India with Bharat. Compare India with India. Don't compare India with other countries just in terms of, you see that the kind of culture we have, in terms of language, in terms of religion, in terms of regional differences, and in terms of not differences but disparities. And we should appreciate Indian knowledge system, which we have created. The mathematics, the astronomy, the philosophy, yoga, the whole world is now looking at us. The whole world is looking at us, the leader of the world. In that context, I think all these conferences and last thing I would share with you in this policy is about the assessment system. And for that purpose, we are really thinking how to give a well-built evaluation system, and government is now thinking to have a Parak. I think you might have heard about this thing. Too much of efforts are being reshaped in terms of giving performance assessment review and analysis of knowledge for holistic development. This is a kind of practice is being adopted. Work are being done in this direction to have the Parak system where we can have. So we, like in last in 1986 we had CCE, comprehensive and continuous evaluation policy. This time we have Parak. Our point is that whether it is Parak or CCE, we have to really get involved and see that, because Parak specifically talk about holistic development, all-round development, and looking into integrated development, and that would give you give the students a new path. So with this, I'm sure that uh, the conduct of these kinds of conferences, conduct of these kinds of discussion would certainly be a kind of great thread to design a fabric for holistic integrated and inclusive learning. And that's the point we have to ensure. That's the point we have to see that we should go for that. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm sure that will certainly 3 days, 6 to 8. You have started this policy. Will certainly go for some kind of threats. This policy, this conference could give us some kinds of, because the office of Sushma Chauhan ma'am would certainly require the inputs from the practitioners like you all, the people who are sitting in the classrooms, persons who are, I call the teachers as active practitioners. The teachers are active practitioners. The kind of practices, the kind of thinking you have, and that would give a strong inputs to Madam Chauhan office so that they can design, they can go ahead the proper implementation plan. Thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thanks a ton, sir. In very short span of time, you had made us aware, you apprised us of NEP in such a beautiful and wonderful way. I mean, all of us will agree to it that we really were engrossed in your discussion, and you aptly focused on the various implementation policies discussing all the 27 chapters. And you talked about holistic development of learners, which is so important nowadays. And then you again talked about curriculum and critical thinking and inclusive. Frankly speaking, I was also not very clear about this concept of inclusive education. And thank you, sir, for really making my concept clear. So you talked about developing the capacities of teacher, which is very important because all of us here on this platform are teachers, and we truly want to develop our capacities to the fullest, and so that we keep on moving with the technology. As we talk about pandemic time, and before that, I suppose if I just talk about myself, I suppose I was also not very confident about using the technology. And here we are all like warriors, we can say. The teachers we too are Corona warriors now. We have uplifted ourselves, and see, we are here and teaching our students so well. So this is what I can say. And I particularly liked your concept of storytelling, the pedagogy. And that's so amazing to listen from you, that learning mathematics in a story form. I mean, I am a person who is very afraid of mathematics, but that would be very interesting, I suppose. So thank you so much, sir. And the assessment of the student you talked about is really thought-provoking, especially the Parakh. I mean, we will all try and develop what exactly it is, and focus more on this. So with this, thanks a ton, sir. Now the platform is open for discussions. So please unmute yourself and start your questions one by one.
Dr. Shubhra, may I take your permission for a question from sir?
Okay, yes, Abhimanyu, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sir. It was a wonderful presentation, and I was keenly looking through your PPT and listening to every word, absorbing as much as I can. And indeed, I was taking notes like a student also. So it was a great learning experience. But I have one question, sir. In your while we were on slide 3, you talked about to ensure about inclusive and equitable quality of education, and on slide you yourself raised the question which slide number 11, you yourself raised the question which I wanted to ask, which is about how do we ensure the inclusive education, because inclusive education is not limited to the multilingualism or multiculturalism. I am myself the student of Indian Sign Language. So here I want to ask you, what is the take of national education policy on disability students? Because according to the WHO data, there are around 6 crore 30 lakh speech and hearing impaired people. Now, if only they learn in sign language, they will hardly able to communicate among themselves. But what about 130 crore people of India? How would they communicate with rest 6 crore people, and how those 6 crore people will communicate with 130 crore people of India? So this is my question is on what is the take of national education policy on disability learning or for the disabled, especially able candidates of India.
Thank you, Dr. Abhimanyu. As far as the inclusive education, generally what we consider that inclusive education is only, it's kind of involving the people from all disabilities, but also not disabilities, but also inclusive education or inclusiveness of education also talks about how to involve the people from different background, socioeconomic background, how to involve the people. I think the basic, I'll come to your question, but basic one thing I'll share with you, that in our country, the basic problem is that the very clear divide which you always feel having, that government schools and the so-called public schools, private schools. So that's a very, very challenging point, that how could we have the many state governments, even this UT government of JNK is also thinking, I believe, in terms of providing best quality education in government sector, so that people get, so all the schools are there could be some differences, but not the very visible difference we have. We, not to say on this platform, but I feel really painful to say that we the kind of people have the heterogeneous for the government schools. I don't know why, because the teachers are the best teachers you'll find in government sector. Best facilities, government is so much conscious about the government schools. But why the society has this we have to work upon. And that would be, I think, the very clear path of having inclusive education, to have every school setup get included. We shouldn't have all these divide. That's one thing. As far as your question is concerned about the involvement of disability and other things, let me share with you, friend, that policy is very clear on this issue, that the use of technology, because technology would be essentially required. Generally, we prepare or develop the technology for the people who have desirable level of abilities. But now this policy is very clear that we need to develop the specific equipments, specific facilities for the people who have learning disability, for all kinds of learning disability, maybe visual, maybe hearing disability, or all kinds. So now we have to work upon, since I'm myself looking after this aspect in different programs, so we have to develop now the technology, maybe online technology, offline technology, so that the people from any disability would get involved, or they get the due opportunities in equal share. That's a good point. Even if we develop the video, if we develop something, so we have to see that how could we get maximum the students from other disabilities. So this policy is very clear about that. There are specific references in this policy for this inclusiveness in terms of disabilities, through technology, through use of different pedagogy, and through different curricular practices. This policy is very clear about that.
All right, so thank you so much. Thank you.
So we have one question from Anita Sharma. Anita Sharma, ma'am, will you please unmute yourself and ask the question, or should I ask on your behalf?
Hello, good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Anita ma'am has joined us from Shimla.
Thank you so much, Shubhra, for giving me a chance. First of all, good morning to our keynote speaker, sir. It was really, sir, a wonderful, insightful, discourse. I really enjoyed it. The only thing, because there are rumors in our, fraternity, which I wanted to share with you. They just say that we are planning to have cluster colleges or cluster universities in the coming, time under our national education, policy. So in that way, somehow people, they assume that we are going to have more of commercialization of education, and that could be equivalent to the privatization of education. So what do you suggest for that? Is it a privatization sort of thing, or it would really uplift the learners in the education, sector? Thank you, sir.
See, yeah, that's very, I think, technical point you have raised, Madam Anita. I have gone through your chat also in the chat box with the question which you have raised. As Madam Anita, this policy is actually recommending multidisciplinary character of the institution, and that's very clearly written in this policy that stand-alone colleges will be gradually closed down. Stand-alone colleges, that means colleges having the single discipline will gradually be closed down. And specifically, I'm talking in terms of the teacher education, and not teacher education, but also the professional kind of thing. That now we have to go for the multidisciplinary character. That one student joins any institution, he should have maximum opportunities, maximum options available within that institution. Why one student, see, why one student should go for from Jammu to any other place for higher education? Why can't we have the multidisciplinary institutions in Jammu, in Doda, in Kishtwar? So that's what actually gradually government is thinking. This policy is recommending. That's very clear mention of this policy that we have to convert single discipline or maybe two or three, but we have to go for multidisciplinary character. This is one thing. And under that, all colleges, institutions will be given the autonomous character. The load, you have seen the very good example of cluster university in our union territory or in our state earlier. Uh, though some the hiccups are there, but this initiative has reduced the burden, has reduced many of things on other universities. So we have to go for kind of autonomous character, autonomous thing which you have raised in your. In that way, the colleges, the students at the college level, I think not again there is a divide you find in our institutions. Also, the people, whether you are getting education from the university or from the college, student generally not getting admission in the university, they say, okay, got the admission in the college. Why? Even a student is getting admission in any college, he should be equally treated as a student of who has got admission in PG level in any university. So the institution, the colleges need to give the autonomous character. But because if you give the autonomy to the colleges, institution, ये बहुत time से बहुत चल रहा है. It's a very long demand of the teachers in working in the colleges. They should get the research options. They should get the option to guide the research, to conduct the research in the colleges. I don't know why universities are not in favor of. So that's kind of thing. This policy has said that colleges should be given autonomous kind of autonomy so that they can design their own teaching, they can conduct their own research, and also the multidisciplinary. Though this will be not simple thing, but multidisciplinary character of the colleges. For that purpose, more disciplines need to be introduced, more teachers of different disciplines need to be recruited, and so that this is basically for the students. Because if I suppose I take admission, why should I be forced to opt this paper, not that paper? Because of the disciplinary character of the institution. So this policy is very clear that institutions have to work upon to have more and more disciplinary character and multidisciplinary character, so that the student gets maximum option. Within that institution, you should have vocational. Let me share with you, friends, that now like we in our Central University of Jammu, we are conducting BA B.Ed program. That is 4 years B.Ed program directly after class 12. And let me share with Madam Sushma Chauhan that we have the students who are doing BA B.Ed in our university. We are running the third batch, 4 years. Just after class 12, they joined BA B.Ed course. So we have the BA as well as B.Ed that's going on integrated with. Very smooth integration is going on. We have started this experiment for last 3 years. We are running, I'm the head of the department, so I'm looking after the basic thing. And the teachers, we are preparing teachers and the kind of students, when I interact with the students who are 12th pass, some of the students are from Jammu, we have the students from Jharkhand, Bihar, UP, Maharashtra, around 40 students in the third batch. So they are so clear, ma'am. They're so clear that why did they join this course? They said, sir, we want to become teachers after class 12. And just after, and the students of high merit point, because we have all India test, you all understand Central Institute of Jammu conduct all India test. So we have the students who have decided to become teachers. We need the teachers by choice, not by chance. That's a big thing. So they have decided, they said, yes, we have joined not to do BA, but we have joined to do BA through BA. So we have a BA program, and very good results we are getting. We see that motivation level, the inspirational level, the kind of spark the students have. This spark is needed for all different programs. And that's what actually this policy speaks about, that we should have multidisciplinary character in the colleges, where the teachers and the students get the experience, the exposure of teaching as well as research. And Madam Anita, I think that would not lead to the commercialization. Don't have any apprehension. That is actually government is talking about to go for multidisciplinary character. Giving autonomy to the institution doesn't mean that we are just going for the privatization. Autonomy and privatization, these are two different concepts.
Thank you, sir. That means autonomy would give way to innovation. That is the main, agenda of NAP. Thank you so much, sir.
Colleges should be given autonomy to have their own. They should not look at the universities for starting the courses, having the research programs. Now the colleges will have the opportunities to start their own research programs, start their own courses, and go for the new kind of dimensions, innovative courses. Thank you.
Any other question? Yes, Rimpi, I think you want to ask a question. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Then right. Please do.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. My name is Sunana Kapoor. I am from Government College of Education, Canal Road, Jammu. First of all, sir, thank you so much for such an insightful knowledge that you have shared with us. And as you have covered all the domains regarding NEP policy very keenly, thank you so much once again. But sir, there is a question in my mind. As you talked about high quality textbooks, including sciences, but I think science is a kind of subject that requires practical knowledge more than theoretical knowledge. But this policy nowhere reflects such stress on this aspect. And our students always stay away from this practical knowledge. So what would you like to reflect on this?
Kapoor, I want just last, can you repeat the last two lines? Because there was some problem on your audio side.
Okay, sir. Sir, as you talked about high quality textbooks, including sciences. But science is a kind of subject that requires practical knowledge more than theoretical knowledge. But this policy nowhere reflects any stress on this aspect. And our students cannot go to that practical knowledge. They always just keep on learning, and they cannot apply it practically. They cannot critically think like as the point we want to. We want our students to be. So what would you like to say about
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Madam Naina Kapoor. This is, see, when we say high quality text book, it's not only that textbook through print form, but also in that electronic form. Number one. Number two, that science. Of course, I'm basically a science person. I'm a science graduate, and I've shifted to education from arts, and I have enjoyed my life shifting from science to art. I always feel that science is a practical subject, and therefore in this policy there are very clear references that we should have like fully equipped laboratories for science. And that's you see that main emphasis on the experiential learning. Science has to be learned through experiential learning. Science you have to experience, you have to feel science. And therefore, don't think that in this policy there is no reference of practical knowledge. In this policy, where it's clearly mentioned that we should go for the experiential learning. Let the child feel science, let the child experience science, not just read the science. Science cannot be read. You are very correct. It is not through reading you get the science. by experiences, by feeling, by doing, by getting involved in any experimentation, you get the science. And in this policy, said that we need to establish laboratories even from lower classes. Generally, we see that we teach science after 10 years of education to the students, practical science. We do have the practicals from class 9, 10. Why can't we have the practicals from very early classes? Because practical doesn't mean that highly sophisticated equipments you have to bring in the class, but bring the science in the class by having very, very relevant experimentation. So that's there in the policy. That's there.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. That was really thought-provoking. Any more questions or any more deliberations? Thank you, sir. I can just see the chat box and it's full of compliments for you. And some says intelligent reflection and very knowledgeable session. Thank you for joining us, sir, and sharing your valuable. Yes, I think we have. Okay, sorry, Sonia Chaudhary. So there's a question from Sonia. I think we'll take up this question. This is the last question we'll take up. Yes, Sonia, please ask your question.
I have read Madam Sonia Chaudhary's question, and I think Madam Sushma would be the better person to answer this question, that how it is going to be implemented in the government institution. Though Madam is looking after all different, she is looking after. Madam is a very active person to look after the policy implementation. We should really get benefit from the people like Madam Chauhan, the other officers we have in our union territory. And I think their involvement, their vision is very clear that we should not have division of government and private, but this time I think too much of things we should expect from the government institution. Madam Sonia, we'll see that I think better we should give opportunity and the kind of chance Madam Chauhan also to speak upon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So thanks for joining us, and now moving on, what I really am reminded of another proverb by Polio. He says, when we strive to become better than we are, everything around us becomes better. So true. So we are all here to striving to become more better teachers, educators in our fields. Now, I invite our worthy Secretary Higher Education Department of Government of UT of Jammu and Kashmir, Madam Sushma Chauhan, for her inaugural address. Ma'am, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shubhra. Dr. Kulvinder Kaur, Principal, Government College of Education, Jammu, and also the patron of today's organizing committee. Other patrons, co-patrons, Dr. Sushma Bala, Assistant Professor of Education, who's also the convener of the organizing committee. Dr. Shubhra Jamwal, Assistant Professor of English, also the organizing secretary. Other coordinators and members of the advisory board. Dr. J.N. Balia, who is the HOD of Educational Studies at Central University, Jammu. All the principals who are there with us, the guest speakers, scholars, and all of the participants. I see about 140 of them who are connected with us. A very good morning to all of you. I thank the entire organizing committee for inviting me to this inaugural event of 3-day international conference on teaching, learning, and education. And I especially thank Dr. Kulvinder and Dr. Sushma for being very insistent that I remain present for this meeting. Despite the fact that I was on leave today, they did not just leave me with an option of saying no. So I extend my thank you to them also. Let me say at this point that I'm extremely fond of being part of such conferences, workshops, and such forms of interaction where you meet people. Even virtual meeting is a meeting where you talk to experts of various fields, because I feel of all forms of learning, it is the observational and the interactional form of learning which is the fastest and most effective. I'm not taking anything away from textbook reading and sitting in your corner and reading, but this kind of interaction definitely adds that added advantage. So thank you for having me over, but the only reason why I shy away from such conferences is this extraordinary effort of calling me the chief guest and asking me to give the presidential address, because I feel in this August gathering where there are experts from every field, I have nothing to add, which probably accounts for being called as a presidential address. At best, I can share my experiences also, just like any other participant. So that is what I feel would be my additional contribution today also. And what I feel is that the constant quest that we all have spoken about, the speakers who spoke before me, is for learning and evolving as a human being. And that is the most basic, essential quest in all of us. And the role of teachers in this quest, which starts from early childhood and goes on till probably the adult life, starts from the school up till colleges, is absolutely paramount. And family and friends, of course, are there. I feel wherever I am today, I owe a great deal to my father. But I also feel that the role of teachers, and for many of us, maybe the role of teachers stands way before family and friends in shaping who we become eventually in life, the kind of life that we all lead. So for me, the role of teachers is extremely important. And when I say this, I also want to touch upon another very important aspect, which I feel that for any nation, and I do not take away anything from other sectors, but for me, any nation, any developing nation, or the ones which have already taken a lead, the two most important sectors are health and education. And when I say this, all I need to add to this is probably we should just have a look at the literacy rate and the life expectancy, and that speaks for itself. So all the professionals, all of us, all participants who are associated with the one of the most important sectors, education, we have an additional responsibility for ensuring that our work is done well and with the sincerity and dedication. I remember one of the participants had spoken that he was noting down everything that Dr. N.J. Balia said, like a student. So that is the quest which we still have to retain, the childlike, the school student-like sincerity, even in our profession right now. So I like that very much. And I feel that, as I said in the beginning, that wherever I am today, in my personal life, in my career, in my social life, I owe a lot to my teachers. And in fact, everyone that I met in the official teaching setup. So, and I'm sure you share this experience too, as I said. And in my current role as Secretary Higher Education, I have just taken over a month ago. I was DC Jammu before this. And 11 years of experience in the Indian Administrative Services, I have primarily remained on the field. This is my first tenure as a secretary. And I feel anxious, and I feel that added set of responsibility to ensure that the initiatives are taken in the right earnest, in the right direction, with the right speed as well. Because over here, the year that I have, or 2 years, or whatever time that I have, and one of the participants had also spoken about how we intend to implement the NEP, which I will also touch upon briefly. These months ahead, or this 1 year period ahead, is very, very crucial. And all I can say is that with the support from all of you and the right kind of inputs, I am sure we will be able to implement the action plan which we have already devised. And when I say this, I cannot help recalling something that I had read very early in my school days. This is a quote that I had read in probably one of my Nanaji's textbook. It said that, it was a very powerful image. It said that Guru Gobind dono khade kake lagu paaye, balihari Guru aap ki Govind diyo bataye. For the understanding of other participants who are also there with us, such is the role of a teacher, that if I have my teacher and the God, or whoever you believe in as the supreme power, if both are standing in front of me, who would I first bow down to? I would bow down to my teacher, because it's the teacher who has shown me the path to whatever I want to ultimately achieve in life. So that is how powerful the teacher is, and I have experienced this myself. With that kind of understanding of what the role of a teacher is as a mentor, and all of us here, I think the responsibility of shaping the young minds of today, who are going to be the future of the nation tomorrow, is a huge responsibility. And there is a need for constantly evolving and learning to be able to keep par with this very extraordinary, brilliant young minds that we have. And of course, conferences like these, today it's on a virtual mode, but I'm sure in near future, we will also be meeting on a lot of one-to-one interactions, and that will certainly add value to our learning. And coming to the NEP and how it is going to be delivered, I would just say that we have, as Dr. N.J. Balia said, there are about 12 chapters which deal with higher education, and each chapter touches upon a specific theme. Within each theme, there are deliverables. So we have chalked down those deliverables and how to implement them. If we say inclusive education, what do we mean by inclusive education? Would it include opening new degree colleges so that there is access for everybody? Within the existing degree colleges, do we need to do more awareness campaigns so that more females enroll? Or we will have to do some mapping whether all the feeding higher secondary educations in that area have all females also enrolled in degree colleges nearby. So similar such actions we will have to take. Another very important chapter, which is accreditation of colleges for improving quality education. What is the kind of hand-holding that we need to do with colleges, mentor-mentee relationship that we have to create between colleges who have already got themselves accredited and those who are still starting the journey. So we have made that plan, and very soon, probably in a week or 2 weeks time from now, we are going to crystallize it and make plans as to what is to be achieved in next 2 months, what is to be there as an intermediate goal, and what is to be there as a long-term goal. So all that kind of planning is certainly there, because policy document is prescriptive, it is very comprehensive. The kind of presentation which Professor Saab gave was very crisp and comprehensive. It covered every aspect. So accordingly, we have also made sub goals as to what we are going to do so that we are able to implement it in the right earnest and we are able to appreciate its outcomes. Eventually, I feel the outcome or the single most important benchmark of all this would be when there are more professionals who are able to find jobs or are able to convert their learning into another higher level research or innovation in their chosen field of interest. So those are the outcomes that we are looking at. But it's a long-term vision. It is not something which is going to happen immediately or right away. But yes, we also do not have time to waste, so that we are able to get where we have to in a decade from now, or in 5 years from now, or even a year from now. We have all those kind of plans ready. The questions asked were also very interesting. In fact, sitting in my cozy comfort, I was just wondering how Professor Saab is going to answer this question. The question which Dr. Abhimanyu asked was also very interesting. Dr. Anita, and there was one student also from College of Education. She also asked something very interesting. And with these words, I would just say that whatever the conference brings out in the next 2 days, over the next 2 days, and also today, would be absolutely beneficial for our teachers, and there will be immense benefit that would percolate to the student community also. And it was absolutely wonderful to be part of this conference, and I feel much wiser than what I was an hour and a half before I joined this virtual conference. Thank you so much for having me over. Thank you.
Thanks a ton, ma'am. Your presence and your encouraging words means a lot to all of us. And we assure you that together as a fraternity, and especially the higher education department of the UT of J&K, we will work out together and come out of this pandemic time and give our best to
Thank you, Dr.
bring this
Shubha.
status up.
I just want to add that the college has done an outstanding job of organizing this virtual meeting despite the pandemic. A big round of applause to them. And I am very, very happy that their spirits are so high and they have kind of gathered so many of us together for the next 3 days, and the kind of topics which have been taken. Madam Principal was elaborating upon them, and I can also see them on the brochure. It is absolutely commendable and wonderful. All the best.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Now, moving ahead, I invite Dr. Sushma Bala, the convener of the event, for a formal vote of thanks to Madam. And ma'am, we invite you further also. Anytime you can join us, it will be a real pleasure that you are with us. It gives us a lot of boost. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shubhra Jamwal. Namaskar, ma'am, once again. A lovely and warm morning to one and all present here on this 3-day international virtual conference on the theme Teaching, Learning and Education. With the due permission of the house, I would like to recite the Sanskrit Shalok on Vidya. Vidya didati vinyam, vinyat yati patratam, patritvat dhanmap noti, dhanat dharma, tata sukham. I would like to just clarify it and understand you all comfortably. Learning gives creativity. Creativity leads to thinking. Thinking provides knowledge, and knowledge makes you great. With these words of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, I, Dr. Sushma Bala, Senior Assistant Professor, GCOE Jammu, On behalf of the worthy principal ma'am, Dr. Kulvinder Kaur, and the entire team of GCOE Jammu Canal Road, JNK India, feel it be my proud privilege to propose vote of thanks in the inaugural session of the 3-day international conference jointly organized by Government College of Education, Jammu, JNK India, State Islamic Institute, Madura, Indonesia, Universitas Muhammadiyah Siddharnag Repang, Indonesia, Universitas Al Siraya, Mandar, Indonesia, Cape Comorin Trust, India, Lavender Literary Club, India, and in association with Cape Comorin Publishers, India. I wish to express our sincere thanks and deep gratitude to our respected Secretary Ma'am, Sushma Chauhan, for being the chief guest of this 3-day international conference this morning. Dhanyavad ma'am for sparing your valuable time from your busy schedule for gracing the occasion. We are really grateful to our Secretary ma'am for her words of encouragement. Her able guidance has always been encouraged us, and your inspirational address really motivated us to perform well in our future events also, ma'am. It's a great learning experience listening to you. Thank you so much for your kindness, interest, hospitality, and continued support. I really mean it from the core of my heart, Sushma ma'am.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
I would like to thank our worthy principal ma'am, Dr. Kulvinder Kaur also. Thank you so much, ma'am, for supporting and encouraging us to organize such an auspicious event. I also express my heartfelt thanks to all the principals of various degree colleges who have joined us across the globe. I am honored, respected G.N. Walia sir, to have the opportunity to give a vote of thanks to you. Dr. G.N. Walia, Head Department of Educational Studies, Central University of Jammu. Sir, you very concisely and precisely, very comfortably give the detailing of the NEP 2020. Recently, we had done a full national conclave on this, but you very beautifully tried to understand us all about the NEP 2020. I also want to express my heartfelt gratitude to all the speakers of the day one, Dr. Amitabh Vikram Dwivedi from SMBDU Katra, Dr. Namra Munir, Lahore, Pakistan, Dr. Rashid Minas, Watu, Sialkot, Pakistan, Dr. Azad Nimati, Iran. I would like also to thank all the chairpersons, members of the advisory board of GCOE, organizing committee, and dear participants. I would like to thank you all the respective representatives for your valuable presence in the 3-day international virtual conference. In my concluding words, I would like to just recite, never stop learning, because life never stops teaching. With these words, last but not the least, our organizing secretary, Dr. Shubhra Jamwal, region President Cape Comorin, and also the media persons, we all are very grateful to you all. And Walia sir has given one glimpses here that there is a power of language, and it's really touches me. All the participants, whenever we meet on this virtual conference, I always use my own mother tongue also. So as I belong to Jammu JNK UT, India, I belong to a Dogra culture. I would like to recite my own Dogri language, and after that I will also translate it. तुंदे सारे दा बड़ा मता धन्यवाद. मैं अपने दिल दी गहराइयां करा तुंदे सारे दा बड़ा शुक्रिया अदा कर रही हूं. I am really grateful to all the dignitaries, all the panelists, all the speakers, resource persons, and especially Sushma ma'am. She knows that why I'm speaking like that. I'm getting emotional, ma'am, but I have to be here with you. You really give a tribute to my father. Thank you so much.
He was a great man, and he's with us all the time. You're doing a great job. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And we can truly see that we are implementing the policy as she did it, that we are translating our own language. So sweet. Thank you so much, ma'am.